the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
My guest is Taylor Fogarty. She's been sharing her story. She formerly identified as a self-proclaimed atheist and lesbian, grew up in a non-religious home, and rode her 20s that way, eventually graduated from Columbia University, and is now a mother. She left a life of substance abuse behind. Incredible story. And Taylor, you really give, I think, I was sharing with you earlier, like a taste into this identity culture we live in. You slap the lesbian label on you, you experience a sexual abuse. There's so many things in your story. And I think today, you look at, here you are, you're Catholic, you come into the church, you're a mother. So many men and women, especially who grew up and came through high school the last 20 to 30 years, have really struggled in that I don't think many of them have been unscathed by the culture we live in, especially if you're Gen Z. And that label culture has truly eaten away at so many of them. And I think that once they start to label themselves as one of these things, lesbian, victim, trans, you name it, talk about gender fluidity, they think they have to stay there. Now, you've come out of this identity. Can you speak to like that stuckness that so many, like once you label yourself and you make this big public display of it, whether it's just kind of exhibitional behavior, or maybe it's social media, or maybe like yourself, you start writing and you're, the loud lesbian as you had identified. How do you come out of that? Or is it easy to when this is how you have labeled yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that, part of it is a lot of pride. I mean, people don't want to admit that they could have been wrong about something. They want to cling to these labels. I think also people adopt this idea that this label is integral to their identity. It is who they are. And I think you hear that a lot with people saying, oh, well, this is an immutable trait. I was born this way. This is who I am. And to abandon that, what would that mean? That would mean I'm abandoning my true self. That would mean, I also think that people are really desperate for community, especially now that culture is so, we live in these kind of micro cultures in our own worlds on our phones. So people are really desperate to feel like they're a part of something bigger. And these sort of communities and identities, I think, give them that feeling. And again, to abandon that would be, I think, to abandon their identity and then their community. And that's hard for people.
Taylor, what would you say to that 20-something-year-old who's stuck in that label they put on themselves? Maybe it's a trans, maybe it's lesbian, maybe it's a gay identity. They're wounded, they have this brokenness, they've made a lot of mistakes. At this point, maybe they're starting to realize that they're engaging in a little bit of self-inflicted abuse by the lifestyle, they're living, yet they maybe think they're not worthy to come out of it because everything they've experienced or chosen.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, to that person that you are so much bigger than these things that you're identifying yourself with. You're so much more than the person you want to hook up with. You're so much more than what has happened to you as a child. And that there is something bigger you can be a part of, but it doesn't exist within yourself. It's much larger and it's outside of yourself, and it's with God. And that there is truly nobody on this earth that is too far for redemption and for grace. And that's what I've learned through the Catholic Church. And that's a really, really beautiful thing.